an ode to people who don't believe in themselves. What comes first, belief or action? Do you need to believe that you can do a thing before you can do it? Fake it until you make it is one option, but incredibly hard if you're introspective and have low self-belief and high standards. So what about make it until you believe it? Here are some lessons that I've learned. You can believe you're not worthy of a thing and still attain it. You can be adamant that your efforts are going to go badly and still succeed. You can grip and grasp and fear and it ruin the enjoyment and be totally unwarranted and things still go well. You can have no self-belief and show up anyway. You can want more for yourself without knowing exactly what that looks like. You can doubt the process, question your talent, be uncertain that you're making progress, disparage your accomplishments, permanently feel like you're not working hard enough no matter how hard you work, never give yourself a break, fail to fully feel gratitude, be terrified of never reaching your goals, and still end up in a place that your 20-year-old self could not imagine you'd ever get to. Self-belief is overrated. Generate evidence, says Ryan Holiday. Where does stay relentless come from?
The relentless part, that comes from my father 100%, where he definitely ingrained in my head being relentless. I feel like without saying stay relentless to me, just sort of by his actions throughout life. And I believe that as I have gotten older, as I've played sports my entire life, and obviously not now, but from 11 years old all the way until 18 years old playing sports, I discovered the whole nonstop, continuously grinding, and the more work you put in, the more you get out. And I feel like that sort of defined who I am. And I feel that that's something that I've always aspired to be, is to be the hardest worker in the room.
Another realization, there are no solutions, only trade-offs. This outrageous lesson from Thomas Sowell. You don't get to live the comfortable life with recognition and progress and all of the personal development that you really care about, and also be able to switch off from that stuff whenever you want. It's like you think that you could be obsessive and driven in one area of your life, but be able to create a hard boundary where it doesn't bleed over into everything else. That's just not the way that it works. Your brain doesn't know, oh, these are the pursuits that I'm supposed to really, really be obsessive about. But when it comes to my relationships, or when it comes to how I feel about my progress in the gym or whatever, I want you to leave that bit apart, compartmentalize it. It's like, no, this is a nature that you're building inside of yourself, or in many ways has been sort of bestowed on you genetically. So there are no solutions, only trade-offs. Okay, would you sacrifice all of the things that you care about yourself, your depth of thought, the development that you make, if it meant that you got to have a little bit more peace? For the most part, I don't think you would. And because worrying is so common in every pursuit that you attempt, your successes are seen as proof that worrying is a performance enhancer, and your failures are seen as proof that you should have worried all along. So you end up with unfalsifiable negativity, kind of a walking anxiety disorder harnessed for productivity, like Andrew Wilkinson says. You build this link between worry and performance, belief that your performance would have been markedly worse if you hadn't worried so much, and that the worrying is precisely what motivated and enabled the outcomes that you wanted. Even when you reach black belt status and you've got confidence in your capacities, there's a lack of enthused energy. It seems like maybe the worries left you, but it's not been replaced with excitable enthusiasm, just higher expectations. And I have been thinking about this an awful lot this year and kind of want to propose a radical new approach, which is assuming that things will actually go well. It's a realization that we all need to come to, that this is all going to be over pretty soon. And I need to remind myself to realize that this thing isn't going to last forever. This is one day you will do your final sports match, or your final trip to give a presentation, or a concluding project at work, or whatever. And you can look back on a great run of miserable successes, or actually try to embrace some enjoyment, perhaps even try to prioritize it. One thing that a lot of high achievers do, especially people that care a lot about their pursuit, is they confuse relentless, dour severity with seriousness and sophistication. I don't think it's more noble to treat your pursuits so sternly that the only positive element is the end result and absolutely none of the experience. TLDR, I think things will go well. You will figure it out just like you always have. So actually go and seek some joy.
There's the combination of death and malevolence is something like the ultimate challenge or the ultimate predator. And so it's like the king of all dragons. That's a reasonable way of thinking about it. Death and malevolence itself. And so the ultimate hero is the person who determines to confront the ultimate forces of destruction voluntarily. And that's the story that's encapsulated in the Christian passion. Well, why? Well, because it's an ultimate story. It's the story of the ultimate exposure to the furthest reaches of mortal catastrophe. So just think it through, rationally, not asking for any suspension of disbelief here. I'm telling you how this story of identity works. Now, the alternative to that is something terrible, because the alternative is coming to understand what identity means. And coming to understand that means coming to understand what I just described, is that's the burden that's placed on people who want to get to the bottom of what constitutes identity, right? Is that you're called upon to maintain your upward aim regardless of the catastrophe of life. And the promise is that if you do that voluntarily, the spirit of the cosmic order will walk with you while you do it. Right? And that seems right, because we know practically, we know psychologically that you become braver and better with every decision you make to confront what obstacle terrifies you and stops you in your tracks, right? You develop into more of what you could be by constantly confronting the things that challenge you most deeply. To speak or to write the truth means you have to be oriented toward the truth, and that you have to have made a practice of that. And there isn't anything about that that's temporary or fragmentary. It has to be part of your identity, or maybe it has to be your identity and maybe what you're doing when you encourage people to bring their best to the table and you reward them for those offerings that are genuine, is that you're encouraging their identity as upward aiming truth tellers. And there's no difference between that and encouraging the manifestation of the Logos, right? That's the same thing. The Logos being the Spirit of the Word, or the Spirit of Christ, the Spirit of God that broods on the water, the deep at the beginning of time, and that brings the created order into being. That's all the same thing. You gotta be very careful not to punish the people around you that you love for doing something good, because you can eradicate what's good with punishment quite rapidly. And so it's a deep thing to understand that you need to be watching the people around you all the time to see when they hit the target and to point that out. And people love that. If you do that to people around you, they'll be so thrilled with you, you could hardly stand it, right? Because all people but those who are utterly nihilistic and faithless will risk offering something genuine from time to time in the desperate hope that it is in fact noticed and appreciated.
The central thread in these clips is about confronting life's relentless demands with courage and purpose. It starts with the lesson that hard work driven by relentless effort shapes identity. Yet, as the conversation unfolds, a deeper truth emerges. Relentless pursuit must be balanced by a broader aim, seeking joy, truth, and growth despite fear and uncertainty. This isn't just about grinding endlessly, it's about showing up even when belief falters and trusting that evidence, not blind confidence, builds true self-belief. So yes, be relentless, but remember, life isn't a race to be won with anxiety. It's a challenge to be met with grace.